that the average person does not read. The average person does not go to the gym. The average person does not care about personal development or mental health, right? And of course, that's dated. And now we could literally get this impression that there's something that's maybe a missing link, right? But specifically, I want us to talk about the importance of reading, but I want us to first understand what makes most people not read, right? Because I feel like that's the most important part. In the world that we're living in today, there's so much information. There's so much books. There's really so much that we could literally try to just get into our own Google and just type PDF books. There are thousands of books that you can read, literature books, novels, science, tech, and everything. Right? It's just beneath our fingertips, something like that. Right? But what I want to understand is that why do most people not read? What makes one person not want to read? Right? And after having read so many books, after having listened to so many great guys, great performers, I've come to this one thing. An average person does not go to the gym. A high performer goes to the gym. An average person does not read. And a performer reads. Every leader reads. That's stated. That's a great way of balancing it, right? And I think the one thing that I would just try to talk about that makes one person not want to read, without being skeptical, I'd say you cannot have tough conversations if you don't have a perspective, right? And I would try to put this question to say one of the reasons why most people don't read, that is because they don't have tough conversations, right? Because once you have tough conversations, you have to have a perspective.
Definitely.
That's incredible. That's the most hardest part, right? So let's look at the great interviewers, the great podcasters, the great content creators, the great writers. They always had a
Yeah.
perspective. They
Yes.
always had something to say, right? They can engage in the most difficult conversations,
Yeah.
and they can still have something to say, right? So I would say the one reason why most people don't read it is because they don't engage in tough conversations. Do you think so?
Well, yeah, I do agree that one of the reasons why people don't read more specifically is because of the reason that you've just stated right now. But in addition to that, I think it goes to a point where it's just something that I came to believe in some instances where I started actually venturing into the archetypal of information in terms of personal development, in terms of success, in terms of productivity, in terms of mindset and mental health. I came to believe that there are people who one would suggest that they were created to give us the ability, with the knowledge that they've actually observed, the knowledge that they've actually tried and tested with themselves over the past decades of their life. They've dedicated their entire lives in making sure that they give us something that we can basically be able to say, prior to next coming 10 years of my life, I would love to study an idea that was tried and tested by a certain author in the late 60s and late 70s, because there are still a couple of books that are still trending in right now. You look at the book like the book by Napoleon Hill. You know the book, right? Think and Grow Rich. That book was
Of
written,
course, yeah.
I think it was written about 2 decades or 3 decades ago. I don't remember well.
Yeah.
That was the time when you can literally go back and study that books, because the principles are absolutely resonating with the lifestyle, are absolutely resonating with what the world is basically searching for, you know. So he wrote the book because he ultimately wanted to say, Pragan is coming 10 years, you young boy, you young girl, go read the book, apply the principles. So I think one of the reasons why many people, to answer your question, don't read is because we fail to understand that we are half the experience of other people. That's a very a powerful thing that I came
Yeah.
to believe. we have the experience of other people. So it takes putting yourself in a position where you say, I really have to understand that part of my life is predicated upon what I need to learn, what I need to study, what I need to observe, what I need to realize about what was actually inducted by people who have gone the path before you've actually even envisioned yourself to ever walk in that path. That is the most important thing. We don't realize that we have the experience of the people. So until that we can get that
Yeah.
into our mind, that is the best tool that can actually engineer us into reading. And it's more powerful because if you can learn how to read, you can learn how to speak. You can become so fluent. The most, it's cliche for me to say that when you learn how to read, you have a good vocabulary. That's cliche for me to
Yeah.
say. We know
Yeah.
that from a very a substrata of our education background. Most important in grade, in first grade or second grade, we're taught that when you read, you get to be fluent in how you speak. You get to have a very good vocabulary. That's just for me. I think it's for me since I started the journey of reading. I think it's like 10% or 15% of the mastery equation for me personally. I think when it comes to the part of reading, I think vocabulary takes about 15%. But the entire benefit is really predicated on learning how to communicate. Because I know a lot of young people who I used to go into class and they're very good at verbs and pronouns and all those adjectives and everything. They were very good at the basic level. They were very good at the
Yeah.
basic. That was the thing that I learned. They were very powerful. They could get over 70 or perhaps out of 50 within a test. They could get up to 30% or even not 30%, 30 marks. Or they could get even up to 70% because they know the basic, but they cannot speak. That is the damn critical thing about this because when you learn how to read, you need to can be able to put into practicality what you are learning and what you are studying. Learn to say it without actually referring to something. Just put that. That's the most important thing you can ever learn, and it's the second stage of. It's the second powerful stage that you can ever learn. Being able to take the information that was scripted down and be able to say it, speak it, articulate it, not in the same manner that was written, but in the way that makes you to be able to understand it. It's a whole big idea that can be tried and tested.
So do you think that one of the reasons why we don't have most people who are talking about tough conversations, actually we're not having tough conversations, or who are not actually talking about things that we should be talking about today? Is it because they don't have, is it a question of capacity, or is it a question of not being exposed to new information, new insights? Do you feel like that is the building block to the escalation of such negativity that we see today, such issues that are very, very, very tough to actually try to break down, right? Do you feel like that could be the reason that most people don't read, and because they don't read, that spreads across time to say we have people who are struggling with mental health issues, who are going through a lot, who don't believe in themselves, who don't have the self-esteem that's so rigid? Do you feel like that could be the reason that actually opens this up?
Well, I wouldn't say that necessarily, but what I truly believe to be true in some instances is that there's tons and tons of information. It propagates in such a way that it could it could really it could really put us in a position where each and every one of us can absolutely become intelligent. That's how information propagates. It's so humongous. It's so gigantic. Everybody else can reach out to it. And it's no excuse for why people can read. Information is everywhere. And I don't believe that to be an excuse. I don't believe that to be the reason why people don't read. I think it's like I said, it's the level of acceptance that we have the experience of other people. So that's the mindset that you need to carry. That the moment you walk into someone else's world, or someone else who have actually walked the path before you have walked into that path, which means that you're giving yourself the level of acceptance that this person has gone this path. and I need to understand what he's trying to say. So however people can try and state various factors to why people can't read, I think that's the only reason. For me personally, I came to believe that. If people carry their own perspective on why people don't read, well, good luck. That might be your own reason. But that would be my own reason, that it's not an excuse for saying that there's no information. Information is everywhere. There are tons of books, there are tons of libraries. Go out there, catch a book, read a damn book. That's all that matters. So to come and sit down here and talk about excuses that people make to say there's no information, blah 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 blah, that's shit. That's whole idea. It's an excuse.
I
Yes.
love that. I love that a lot, and I feel like even in my my own journey specifically, I've had times where I felt like, you know what, fuck reading. I don't want to read. Why should I read, right? And I felt like I've created this pathological thinking. Actually, I think it's more psychological than pathological. That reading is for certain people, and that's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever had to say to myself. Okay, fine, reading is for certain people. Like, fuck it, it doesn't work. And you know what actually triggered me that I should read? It's the most ridiculous thing that I've had to accept, that I can't talk to certain people, that I
Yeah.
can't have certain conversations, that I can't be included in certain scenarios, that I can't
Yeah.
begin to object someone. If I object
Yes.
you, do I have a very rigid perception that's lingering in my own life? Do I
Yeah.
have something to lean on? Do I have
Definitely.
this profound perception, right, about what I'm talking about? Or will I be like this little dust mold, right? That's just like a fly. That's what happens. That's what happens
Yeah.
when you don't want to read, when you don't prioritize really acquiring information. It's that you become clueless. The most, man, painful thing, it's to be clueless, especially in this world that we're living in today. You're like, fuck, I never knew that exists, right? I mean, I think it was 2 years ago I posted something like, the most painful thing is to be surprised, especially in
Yeah.
this development that we're living in this rapid
Yeah.
world that we're living in today. It's to be surprised, like, oh damn, I didn't know, I did not know that exists. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
everything is just on the fingertips. It's just near you, man. So what really kind of manifested when I really decided to read was that, okay, fine, then, because now we are so conscious of people who are so let's say, who are great thinkers, people who
Yeah.
can think, people who can really construct a statement and still, say, I can stand for that. We are very conscious of those people. And now
Absolutely.
what came to my mind was that, my God, so these guys are very articulate. These guys can think, they can, construct a statement, a perception, and like, that blows my mind. And I did not want to engage with those people. And I think that's the missing link with most people who don't want to read. It's that they're not surrounded with people, they're not surrounded around people who have tough conversations, people who
Yeah.
literally make them think, like, in a much more bigger scale, like, who just make them feel like they're freezing, they're just on a cold, right? And I feel like having, because I was not near people, like literally physically next to those people, but I was listening to great guys. I was listening to people who were like 30 years, 35 years older than me. And I was like, man, these guys can think. But I was like, okay, fine. What did they not read when they were my age? I was like, okay, fine. Let me just read that. So having convinced myself that, okay, fine, let me just go and read, I automatically, unconsciously, innocently met this genius in me that was so curious to say, okay, fine, let's go. And now I started saying, you know what? I'm not gonna, because this is what happens with most people who start reading. They start to emit a different. They start emitting different energies, right?
Absolutely.
They become very selfish. They don't want to talk to everyone, like literally everyone. They don't want to have conversation with everyone. So now they're very picky, right? They're very picky. They don't want to have conversation with people who just talk about things that are not literal, right?
Yeah.
They're not really productive and sophisticated, right? And ideally, that is what manifests naturally. It naturally, you just feel like I just don't want to communicate with these people. I'd rather have conversation with these guys, right? And now I think that could be the case. That could be the impediment. What impedes most people from reading? It's that they're not surrounded with people who are eloquent, who are sophisticated, and who are very curious. So those could be the things that we could be literally trying to look into, right? And really looking in a microscopic way, in a
Yeah.
microscopic clarity, I might say, right? We look at it in a much more humongous way to say, if I don't read, am I really becoming a a great am I becoming a person of great utility in this world, or am I a substitute for something that does not exist? And I think that's the most ridiculous thing. It's infallible. I don't want most people to feel like it's actually difficult, and it's actually horrific to feel like you are not a part of something, and that hurts. And the most painful thing is to come to the realization that you can be a part of something. You can be a part of a tough conversation. You can be a part of a very miserable, terrifying conversation where most people are sharing their own intellectual ideas, and you just talk about think and grow rich, and they're like, oh my god, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, man, I know something. I think that's the most sweet thing. It's just exciting. It's incredible. So I just wanted to bring this up to you to say, let people read. Let's read so we can engage in better conversations. The
Absolutely.
lesser we read, the more we have extended problems, extended issues in this world that we're living in today. So
Yeah.
if we read, we're becoming more flexible enough to not view things as forces that denigrates who we are, but as
Absolutely.
forces that forces us to grow and
Boom.
become better people. I think that's the most important part. So I just wanted us to talk about that, man. I'm glad that. Do you have a perspective that you want to add before you close up?
Well, it's very interesting when one becomes a testimony of how this actually works. You becoming a testimony of how how it takes how one can actually take just one simple decision that I want to immerse myself into a world of possibilities where one would say there's nothing that I can ever substitute in my entire life than the ability to be able to defend myself. Because I
Yeah.
truly believe that. I truly believe that. If I remember vividly well in my life, I've had some of the most intense conversations. I have the ability to defend myself, largely because I read a book by Robin Sharma.
Yeah.
I read a book by Maxwell. I read the book by tons and tons of people who have read books. I have the ability. In perhaps we're talking about leadership. It's very. I cannot really not be able to defend myself. Having read a
Yeah.
book by Maxwell that he wrote, like that he really constructed in decades of experience in leadership. You know, I have the ability to defend myself to say, I had him say that in his 3 decades of experience, and literally I can question people who leave or people who exist or people who are presently in leadership positions. I've had those conversations with people who are in leadership positions because I had someone with 3 decade of experience in leadership, coaching the billionaires, millionaires, and top business uh, executives and managers. I can be able to defend myself. If they're doing something wrong, I can ultimately say, "This is wrong. It's not right. This is not leadership." And does not mean that I possess I possess qualities of leadership, but because if you see something that someone is doing wrong in the position in which you have learned about something, you can ultimately object and say, "No, this is absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make you feel small that you are not good enough for the position, but I'm trying to say that go and learn from the best." That's exactly what it does. That's exactly what reading does. You get to inform people who absolutely did not know that there are people who are doing best. There are people who have the experience. There are people who have had tons and tons and tons of leadership expositions in their entire life. You get to be able to literally zoom the level of that. You can be able to zoom them to say, go read a book by Maxwell. The book is titled Great Leaders Ask Great Questions. A very nice book by Maxwell. If you can read the book and ultimately feel the depth of why you are sitting in that position. Because you know,
100%.
you get my point. So that's what reading does. It allows you to defend yourself and to defend the truth.
I love that. I love that.
You know, that's what I think have really benefited me in many conversations when I talk about leadership or spirituality, in any conversations. I get to really subscribe to the best teachers, and I can be able to defend their own truth and the truth that have existed for decades and centuries. And if someone comes to you and say, hey, I think this is really absolutely right, you say, absolutely. Let me rethink what Maxwell said in his 30 years of leadership in his life, you know. So you get to say, okay, fine, let's try and test you. Let's put you in a trial test and see exactly how far you can go. And you realize that some people are just hiding behind some of the titles. You get what I mean? So it's very important. That's exactly what I've learned from my experience for the past 2.5 years since I've been in the journey of reading and learning how to read, learning how to really be able to be articulate, be able to defend myself, to defend the truth, because I'm the defender of the truth. I defend the truth. I stand for the truth. I speak for the truth. And when you can do that, you can ultimately be able to defend yourself. You can be able to ultimately have conversations with anybody. That's the foundation. You can do that. You absolutely can be able to be viable in whatever conversation you find yourself in.
I love that. That's incredible, man. And to close up, we need to recap. So the title of the video should be, it is, the average person does not read, and this is why, right? One, we said it is because you're not having tough conversations on your everyday life. You're not meeting people who are literally you're not engaged, firstly, in tough conversations. And the opposite to that, it's you are engaged in less orientated conversations, right? Secondly, you're not surrounded by people who are so curious, who are so focused on really growing themselves and growing their perspective. And the other thing could be something like you've never thought deeply about your own personal growth, your own mind, your own growth as a human being, especially in a world of great change and extreme development, right? Those are three things that an average person does not, that makes an average person do not want to read or something like that, right? So I feel like that could be something that we try to really highlight. So we talked about the possibility that comes with reading, which of course you can become a great communicator, you can have perspective, you can defend the truth, and absolutely lastly, you can become superior in a dark place where people would say absolutely wrong things, and you can become the thing that substitute that and bring a bit of light into that. So I feel like that's the most important part. So guys, it's Visionary Twins. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, and please guys, just click subscribe and comment on the comment button and tell us what you think. We just had to have this conversation because we just wanted you to have a bit of a catch on what it takes to be a great reader, and actually a good reader, but to learn how to read and to be an avid reader and all that. It's just that. So guys, thank you. It's Visionary Twins. We thank you. It's where curiosity builds excellence. Check out for our new and next video. Thank you guys.